Hi, this is Eric Robison with Capitol Hill Life. Today we're going to meet Matt and Kelly. We're going to learn about their work preserving World War II history on South Lake Union with their boat, the USCG-11. Well, Matt, Kelly, I'm amazed all you've done to get as far as you have, restoring a piece of our World War II history, which is also part of the history of the Coast Guard as well. Can you tell us a little bit about the foundation that you've created and the mission?
The nonprofit was really created to manage the restoration of the boat, and it really has three goals: the preservation of the artifact itself, restoration, bringing it back into something usable, and then interpretation, so sharing it with people. And those three pieces are really if we're doing those three things, we're successful.
Okay, so I have to ask this. This is a huge project you two have taken on. What inspired this to even happen? Or that spark of like, do we want to do this? What made you decide to take it on?
Well, it started out as kind of a joke. A friend of ours that lives over in Idaho is the one who had originally contacted Matt or had made a post on one of the military vehicle boards that he's part of, and was joking about loading it on a truck and having it trucked across the country into Idaho. But, you know, he knew that that wasn't a realistic option. And so Matt pulled up the Craigslist ad and he's like, "You want to buy a boat?" And at first I was like, "No, we don't need a boat." But then once we got to looking into the history of the vessel,
Pretty much sold itself.
it was like, okay, we have to do this. Like, if we don't do it, then nobody else.
Yeah, I mean, so when it was over at Lake Union Dry Dock, it was very short-lived to be seized by the marina because it hadn't had insurance for a number of months. So part of the first challenge was trying to actually get insurance for the vessel, and we weren't the owners yet, which added a whole other layer to it. So the clock was kind of ticking on that. There were several other people that were interested in the boat. So talking with Ray's power of attorney, she kind of tried to dissuade us right out of the gate, just saying, you know, there's 3 other people in line. It probably isn't going to happen for you guys. And I was
waited.
Stubborn.
What would you say are some of your primary goals now with the foundation over the next few years?
Well, to primarily just get the boat out of the water, get all the below waterline work done so that we can then get it back in the water and operational.
And we're getting pretty close to where they're starting to actually be put back together. So when they built these wheelhouses, they were actually built in Boston and then shipped down to Brooklyn, New York by rail, where the boat was built. So they built the spray skirts, the wheelhouses, and the fuel tanks in Boston. What's interesting is some of these crayon marks. So this was number 36 out of the lot, because you've got 36, 36, 36.
I see you're kind of restoring.
Yeah, so this was a cabinet that was in the engine room up forward. We actually have a picture from 1954 of the engine room, and you can see the corner of this cabinet where it was positioned then. So we're putting it back to that position where it was in 1954. In the officer's room, the other thing that was somewhat interesting is, so the cabinet here had this notch in it, and we weren't really sure what it was for. We were looking at the prints, and it basically listed it as a pistol locker. And there is actually...
Oh, that would hang in there.
Yeah, and then you could put the 6 pistols in there.
You guys are really good on your research. I'm very impressed. And you're doing this all on your, around your full life and all. This is your love project. I think this is amazing what you and your wife are doing.
The other big change in here is originally the exhaust came from those great big gasoline engines just straight back through these tube rooms. We're not going to go back to that, but we're going to do a similar path, but we're actually going to tuck the exhaust underneath the shelf here and then dive in around the corner.
Yeah, because when this is done, this boat will actually be able to go out on the water. It's not just going to be stationary.
Correct. Yeah.
Can you share with us some of the more challenging moments in historical preservation that you've had to come up against?
Procuring items.
Yeah, I mean, so the scavenger hunt is hard.
What would you say have been the most exciting milestones for you in this process so far, where you're like,
I mean,
Yes, this is happening.
some of it's silly stuff. Like we were over in Paulsbo and we found one of the deck pull hatches from the crew quarters
Yeah.
that I've been looking for 3 or 4 years.
Yeah.
And in the course of the 4 years, I found 3 of them total. On the other end of the spectrum, like with the battleship North Carolina, flying out there to go pick up bunk beds, go out in the back 40 in the swamp, look through the fence, and there's a complete single with a gun in it. There's an empty single mount, and then there's a twin mount with 2 guns in it. And took pictures of it, went back, and the executive director, ex-Coast Guard commander, and he basically said, anything you want. It just has to go to another museum ship if you trade it
can't
away.
sell it.
Yeah.
And I want it on display, not in somebody's man cave. And I said, absolutely, we can do those things.
I mean, you obviously meet a lot of people on this way that are supporting you. I'm one of them now because I want to see this completed. It touches me just because my own father was a D-Day.
There's a good chance he could have actually seen the boat.
He could have. I don't know.
Roaming around.
So, I mean, this is such a passion project. You're totally committed. But like everybody always says, if you're going to remodel the house, this is going to be the challenge. Like either it's going to make or break this relationship. This is more than just remodeling a house. What's the secret? Tell us.
You just have to be all in. You have to commit to it. But you also have to understand that there's times when you don't want to work on it and you just back off for a little bit.
Well, I'm just excited to learn that this is happening in South Lake Union, right beside Capitol Hill. I'm like a lot of people, you drive by and you see all these boats and you always wonder what's going on down there. And to learn today that this museum is slowly coming to fruition and all the hard work you're doing and the volunteers. And I think it's also interesting, you shared briefly with me how the Coast Guard, part of training is to do some volunteer hours and that they're really big on coming here and doing the volunteer hours to help you restore a boat. That's the history of the Coast Guard as well as a history of the military D-Day. So I want to thank you again, Matt and Kelly, today for showing me your passion project. It's been a great history lesson. You're both great professors. I can't wait to see it completed. And again, everybody can reach out through
USCG-11.org.
I wish you all the best. And again, it's just another episode of Capitol Hill Life and what's going around in our city. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I'm Eric Robison.